Cassidy opens her eyes in a dreamlike state after plunging into unconsciousness upon driving her dagger into the corrupt sky iron in the altar on the Isle of Nameera. Enormous, colorful thanatoi, those spirit-delivering moths, flit around an otherwise black and white night sky. The whole scene is grayscale. They fly between small rocky islands scattered around a vast empty ocean. As Cassidy begins to put together what's going on, where she might be, a voice greets her. "I must thank you. I have not seen these moths so active in so long. I feared they had died." Cassidy turns and sees the form of a woman, but not quite human, hold out her hand, and one of these moths, these thanatoi, land on it. And when she turns and looks at Cassidy, her features are unchanging, as if she is carved in stone. And she asks Cassidy, "Do you believe beings other than humans possess a soul?" Cassidy shakes her head and begins to stand up on the small little rocky island she's on. Says, "What? I wouldn't know. Honestly, until Lee, I would have said humans clearly didn't have one, from what I'd seen." The stone woman responds and says, "I'm sorry that has been your experience. Allow me to fully assure you that we do." And Cassidy says, "We? Who are you? You're not human." "No, I am not. I am Nameera. I am this island. You are in the palm of my hand, young human. Your kind has skin, hair, teeth, but your life is carried in your blood, is it not? Islands have stones, forests, coves, caves, but we also have veins, do we not? Carried in both your and my veins is iron." Cassidy looks at her and says, "I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" "Young woman, you have cleansed the poison in my veins, my blood, and the many, many souls that were trapped here are now free, thanks to you. They tell me I owe you a boon." "You speak with them? Do you not speak with those aboard your own vessel? Those you feel responsible for? I understand you've promised to cleanse other islands. I would be much obliged if you would. And so to aid you, you will have my help, though how you choose to use it is up to you. Now, child, open your eyes." Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rene Plays Games podcast, Ironsworn, Sundered Isles, Season 2, Heart of the Dominion, all that good stuff. First off, thank you everybody for being patient with me. I missed my very first weekly episode since I started this podcast back in January of 2024. It was a bonus extra 5th week, but I still hold myself to higher standards, and I apologize that I missed that. And I know May has already started with a little bit of a shift from the usual format, but fret not, I am getting back the momentum I lost. The month of April was just absolutely crazy for me, personally, professionally, etc. So it just kind of, I lost a lot of momentum, but I appreciate you sticking with me and catching up here now that we've started to get back on track. I'm going to keep announcements super short this week. I am going to have another Perspective Checks episode next week. I'm going to be doing 2 a month for the next couple months because I have been so lucky that people reach out and respond to me and want to talk and have interviews. So I figure, as opposed to interviewing somebody and then telling them to wait 5+ months to hear the interview, I'm just going to start doing 2 a month. And that may mean that the 4th week episodes like Mining Medias and other little things kind of get shifted back. But I also, if I can, because these are already recorded and they're relatively easy to edit, if I can, I may be doing some extra drops here and there just because. So who knows? The schedule is going to get a little funky, but if anything, you're getting more of what is usually promised anyway. If you haven't already listened to my first interview from this month, which was with Nicole, aka Game Master Mom, about her upcoming, or currently kickstarting, Tales of Etheria, which is her homebrew world. It is like RPGs light to play with kids. We talked all about playing with young players and onboarding them into this wonderful hobby, and she is writing a book that you can read to kids and kind of get them into the idea of it. It can go great with parents who may be on the fence and don't want to run a complicated system. It is going to have its own super rules-light game that is coming out with it called Adventures in Etheria. So go check out the Kickstarter. And then next week, I'm going to be dropping my interview that I did with a couple of Drakes who are a powerful dynamic duo who are designers full-time and have put out some incredible games. And one of my favorite things about their design philosophy is that they want to make all kinds of different games. They found a home kind of in Forged in the Dark, but they make games with SRDs all the time. So listening to them talk about game design and just all the different kinds of games and the wonders of it all was a great talk. I hope that you enjoy. Now, let's play some more Ironsworn. Okay, well, we got a little bit of what happened when Cassidy struck the cursed iron in that altar on the island of Nameera in the intro scene that I did there. But before I jump right back in to when she opens her eyes, I want to roll a couple of things. Just trust me on the process on this one here a little bit. First, we're going to roll on progress to finish an expedition. So we are going to roll our 2 challenge dice against the progress we made on the expedition Investigate the Sunken City of Nameera. We made it formidable. We got up to 8 progress. So let's go ahead and roll to see how we do when we finish that. No reason. That is 2 1s. Oh my goodness. Okay. So that is a strong hit with a match on finish a expedition. It says on a strong hit, you reach your destination or complete your survey. Mark a reward on your Discovery's Legacy track per the expedition's rank. For Formidable, we get a whole box. And when you fill a whole box on any of your Legacy tracks, you get 2 experience, which you can immediately use to improve one of your assets, which I'm going to do with the Haunted asset. Now, the Haunted asset has 2 very cool next abilities. One is when you face death guided by the spirit, you get to add +1. Given our campaign, I don't think that's the one to do, and this other one is really great, but it's only kind of an endgame thing, but I'm doing it anyway, so I have it. I am marking the following asset improvement for Haunted. 1 time only, when you fulfill your vow, extreme or greater, in service to the spirit, take this ability at no cost and choose 1. I'm not going to say what those 2 options are, because I think that is going to hopefully be how this campaign ends. And I now have that ability in the bag. And thematically, if we're talking about just the game itself right now, I have improved the Haunted asset, which makes a lot of sense in the fiction as far as what Cassidy has been asked to deal with as this campaign continues to go on. And now, before Cassidy opens her eyes, let's just check in on some vows, okay? First, we have the background vow, which is discovery the identity of Will Solace to free Lee Sterling's ghost. Hence why we just chose that improvement. We are at 3 boxes on that, and I'm playing with it pretty loosely. For various reasons throughout the course of this campaign, we have gotten a little bit closer. Little drips of information have kind of come through, and we've been able to track that information to Will Solace, or at least use them as leads. One was information given to us by Demars Ver. One was when Lee Sterling touched the construct to find out that the corrupt sky iron does something to these clockwork soldiers, and someone seems to be behind it. And I'm going to use the off-screen, even though none of our characters currently know this as their knowledge, coup in the Senate by the Bloodsworn after hearing those words, Will Solace, that is going to fill a third box. So we are a long ways away from doing anything with this extreme vow, but there's probably only a handful of episodes left in this campaign, so I'm using what I can to justify it. Next, we have one other ongoing vow, which is use the ghost weapon to free the souls on the peripheral islands. We just completed that on the first one here on the Isle of Nameera, so I'm going to say that since there were 4 or 5 of these, we're not really sure, I'm going to just mark 2 boxes. That feels right. Plus, I finished my expedition with a strong hit with a match, and it ended at that island, so I think that's appropriate. And the last thing I want to roll on before we start is I'm just going to roll my 2d10, my challenge dice for Cinder and Wraith for the moons. Ooh, Wraith is very full, Cinder is not at all. And we're going to roll on some weather real quick. We are in the myriads, so unlikely to be foul weather unless it's a 70 plus. Of course, I rolled an 88. So we have foul weather, and we're going to roll on the foul weather table with the cursed die to see if we get cursed weather. We do not, but we get a 66, which says heavy, high winds, steady rain, rough waters. Okay, so it's choppy out there. And we're going to start with a little bit of a flashback scene. While Cassidy is unconscious after plunging her dagger into the altar and being knocked back and sent into this dreamlike world where she met with the island itself of Nameera, the rest of the world continued on. Senator Minos, who accompanied Cassidy throughout this entire expedition on this island, is suddenly no longer being held down and terrified by the swirling just power of the ghosts and souls that were stuck here and leading Cassidy to this altar. For whatever it was for Senator Minos, it was not this visual kind of thing that Cassidy was seeing, but it was just this overwhelming, I don't know if it was grief or emotions or just exhaustion or what have you, but suddenly when Cassidy falls unconscious to the ground, Senator Minos opens his eyes and looks around. I think we decided, I can't remember what time of day it was, but regardless, I think that Senator Minos grabs Cassidy and tries to shake her to consciousness. He's, come on girl, please. And he's looking out, and from this vantage point where the altar is, there is a pretty decent view of the surrounding island, and I think that he once again sees the Raskar, the ship of the infamous, dreaded raider who has been co-opted and put to work by the Coyote Dominion, hunting down other pirates and folks that are enemies of the Dominion, and he sees it slowly approaching or just blocking the Revenant's escape if and when Cassidy and the Senator get back down there. And I think he starts to get nervous, and Senator Minos is going to heft Cassidy up over his shoulder and begin walking down into the jungles back toward where he can get on the rowboat that took them to the shore. Hopefully, the clockwork soldier that was not Quan is still there, ready to row them back out to the boat. And in a brief montage, we see just the exhaustion that it takes Senator Minos to get all the way back to this rowboat. Luckily, let's just roll on the Oracle. I'm going to say it is 50-50 that this clockwork soldier is still here. I don't think anybody is attacked, but they may have had to hide because, as we said, the Cynosha Society and Explorers Guild are still on this island, so when those tides retreat and the ruins become visible, they go down and they research. Let's see. Oh, that is a 15, so this clockwork soldier is definitely still here, following its orders, and the Senator calls out to it. It comes over and much more easily than the Senator can carry Cassidy, grabs our young heroine and brings her to the rowboat where they row out to the Revenant. This is maybe midday or late afternoon at this point that it took him so long to get down here, and I think that this is when we see, after Cassidy's actions at the altar, I think that the storm is rolling in towards this island. Who knows what not just magical and spiritual ramifications this is going to have on that area of influence where iron becomes corrupt. If this just changed the shape of that sort of domain of ruin, what does it do to the others? Do you know, does it strengthen or weaken their power to do this thing? What is that doing? And I think that there are some strange things that are going to be happening, just maybe with weather, maybe with moons, maybe with magic, who knows. But Cassidy is unconscious this entire time, and I think that we see the boat get back to the Revenant and they haul it up, and now the Senator, the Clockwork Soldiers, we still have Demars Iver and First Mate Asana and the whole crew of the Revenant sitting in this cove wondering what to do. On one side, an island full of Dominion scientists and the Cynosha Society and all of these people one way, and then in the other, it's a race against Raskar. And I think that when the storm rolls in, Asana, seeing Cassidy not coming back to consciousness, makes the bold decision that we have to get her somewhere. We have to go back to Crania, we have to go somewhere that we can be safe. And I think that while Cassidy is still unconscious, the crew of the Revenant attempts to sail through and pass Raskar so they can get their captain to safety. Now, this seems like a good time for the move battle. When you fight in a battle and it happens in a blur, envision your objective and roll. I think Cassidy's going to wake up in the middle of this, but be in no position to start barking orders or know what the heck is going on. So we are going to fight depending on our courage, leadership, or, here's the big one, companions. So we are, of course, rolling with our worst stat, which is heart. And I think this makes sense. It's not necessarily Cassidy's heart, but it is the connection, the bonds between all of those on the ship with their Captain Cassidy, regardless of how close or not she is with them. It is about getting to safety and everyone being okay. So here we go. We are rolling plus heart for battle. Not our best stat, only +1. Oh, so close. I got a 2 +1 for a 3 versus a 3 and a 1 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. On a weak hit, you achieve your objective, but not without cost. We are going to have to pay the price. And keeping in mind that this is probably more about the Revenant or the crew than Cassidy, that's going to hurt even more. Here goes, rolling a D100. Okay, so I rolled an 84, which says you are stressed, which is pretty much the status quo for Cassidy. But it's also not the most interesting result here, so I'm going to pick on pay the price, which I know, trust the dice and all that, but I think I am, and I'm going to use one of the results I got last time on the pay the price, where I rolled the 100 after the weak hit for Cassidy's attacking the altar. And one of them was you are delayed or put at a disadvantage. I think that the goal was to get Cassidy back to Crania or one of the major islands of the Dominion here, but I think that what happens is between the fight with Raskar and the weather, we are waylaid way off course. And I think that damages are sustained, and I think that the crew of the Revenant, who we've said are not hardened sailors and pirates, they are typically normal people who, for whatever reason, have kind of been led here, guided here by some unknown strange force, or are in the debt of the ebb or what have you. So their lack of experience actually leads to our ship probably going the wrong way or tailing way off course in the midst of all this chaos. And I think that by the time the storm ends, we see the Revenant has run aground on these sort of sandbar islands that create this atoll where there are a few small islands in this chain. Everyone is kind of coming to as the sun rises in the morning, and Cassidy finally opens her eyes. Now, I'm not going to stay here very long, but when I first did my Truths and World Building session back in Session 0, I made a faction or a group of people that I just really, really liked, and I wasn't sure how I was ever going to get them involved in this campaign. but I think I found a way to do it, and I'm going to use it for a very simple little scene, which is grounded on this sandbar and amidst these sickly-looking marshes. Cassidy pulls out all of the Revenant's maps and charts and starts looking with Asana and everyone on board, and they all come to the agreement that they are on the small island group known as Vasha's Blade. These are a collection of small islands that are not really populated. There's quite a few old ruins and things like that here, but they're actually kind of a pain to... There's nothing like grows here. Like the marshes are very difficult for anything other than like grasses to grow, and the inlands are small, so they're not really worth developing because all you'd really get on here are a few temporary structures or small structures or things like that, and it doesn't have as much of the resources as the other islands, so they're kind of left alone, and they were kind of left to this group known as the Sularia, who are people who bond with beasts and commune with... They're typically associated with these magnificent, enormous elder rays that they make these connections with. Maybe they ride, all this stuff. They're sworn to protect the seas from hunters and despoilers. Now, that's obviously difficult to do here with the Dominion because they're maybe some of the worst at this, but these islands, they have turned into a safe haven for large beasts of the Isles. And I think that when Cassidy realizes this, she gets a small group. I think her, Asana, maybe Damaris Iver, probably not the Senator, but maybe the Senator. Either way, a small group goes. We're not going to do much RP here. Goes out to see if they can get help from these people to unmoor their boat from the sandbar and go on their way. And I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to recover. We're going to sojourn here for a second. When you spend time recovering within a community, roll plus heart. We are not good at this, but here goes, please. Okay, that's fine. That is a 5 plus 1 against a 6 and a 3 for a weak hit. Bummer, so close. On a weak hit, time is short or resources are strained. We can make 1 recover move instead of 2, but you assume that recover move is as if it was a strong hit. So our health is at 3 out of 5, our spirit is at 1 out of 5, and our supply is at 3 out of 5. I think resources are not great here on these islands, as we've said, so I'm not going to improve our supply. I don't think Cassidy is healing very well, but I'm going to give her spirit a boost. I'm going to pretend like we heartened with a strong hit. So on a strong hit, you find comfort and your spirit is strengthened. Basically, take plus 2 spirit. If you take it as a sojourn, take plus 1 more. So we're going to heal that up to 4. Not full, but needed it, I think, a little bit. And I think that the scene where we see this kind of calm or a little bit of, for once, some positivity comes into Cassidy is that when they are rowing away from the Revenant and towards these small temporary structures, I think we see quite a few of the Sularia. Some of the young are training their rays to follow them in the water, or holding on as the rays swim and pull them along in the water. Elders are treating huge sea beasts, these rays that are maybe 30 feet wide from fin to fin. There are whales that breach the surface of the water and blow out of their blowhole, and, we see a rainbow in the mist as it comes down, and there are Sularia who are peeling off barnacle and growths from these long friends of theirs, which are these beasts of the sea. And in a way, it just shows Cassidy that not everything is this heavy developed myriads in the Dominion, spies, information, money, pirating, death. And over the course of, we'll say like a day or two, the sojourn didn't heal up all of our wounds because we can't be here for long. There aren't the resources to make it happen. It's not what these people do. But we did say that some of the things here are, bathhouses and hospitality. And I think that it's mostly just that it's a relaxing place. I think Cassidy sits there in the water and maybe meets a few of these huge creatures of the sea and it's just kind of nice for a minute to forget about everything that's going on out there. But I think that maybe that's when the senator is like, Miss McCabe, please, we must return. And I actually want to roll one thing, just for fun here. I think Lee Sterling is here as well, and I think that Lee and Cassidy have been talking a lot. We're not going to spend time going into that conversation, but it's a lot about Lee is worried about Cassidy because she's always putting herself in harm's way, regardless of if she's doing it for the right reasons and all of this stuff. And Cassidy is worried about Lee because, in a way that he never has before, he's become vulnerable. But here goes. We're going to say that Lee and Cassidy at one point are talking. They're not really near anyone. I want to know if any of these beasts can sense Lee, or if something's strange. Just for fun here. We're going to roll a D100. It's going to be unlikely, so it's got to be less than a 25. Here goes. Okay, no, they do not. But I think that part of me wanted to think that the Sularia, as people who are bonded to the natural creatures of this world, might understand maybe something about this domain of ruin for these sky iron pieces, that once they come in here, they're just corrupted. Does Cassidy ask? I guess we can gather information. That seems reasonable, I guess, right? I don't really roll that one that often, but that seems like exactly what we're doing. So let's go ahead and use the adventure move, gather information. Research for clues, conduct an investigation, analyze evidence, or do research. I think that we're just talking to somebody. Well, let's go ahead and try that out. We're going to roll plus wits, which is one of our good stats, so +2. Oh no. That is a 5 + 2 for a 7, which you think is good. But it's not good against a 9 and a 10 on the challenge dice. On a miss, your investigation unearths dire threats or reveals an unwelcome truth that undermines your quest. Pay the price. Don't mind if I do. Here goes, rolling a D100 on pay the price. 66. Your vehicle suffers damage. Well, that's kind of lame. Unless that damage is not physical. Wait a second. If we just imagine, if you will, let's just say it's 5, but it could be a square as well. Let's say that you have 4 points that are on various islands within which this square that you will draw, shade in that square, and within that is the area where any sky iron that enters this diamond or whatever shape we have here becomes corrupt. On the island of Nameera, Cassidy just broke that altar's ruinous barrier field. So now those 4 points become 3, and now we have a triangle of influence where this iron becomes corrupt. Now it may not be immediate, it may slowly shrink away, it may have been immediate, who knows, we're not sure. But the Revenant as a ship is cursed. And by removing the curse on this section of the Isles, could that be affecting our captain? Okay, it's been a few days. I know I just rolled for moons, but I'm going to roll again just because we've spent a few days here. Are either of the moons full? Because then we can see our captain, or, the person that is the Revenant. No, neither of the moons are full, so we cannot check in with him, but something about the Revenant does not feel right to Cassidy, and that is not good. Okay, I think that's good. Pay the price, fictionally speaking. Oh, and just to flavor it, this was from gathering information from the Sularia, so I think that as they helped, and maybe they used their enormous bonded friends from the sea to, push and reposition certain sections of either the sandbar or our ship, the Revenant, to get it back out into the waters where it can sail. I think that maybe some of them, this is why I rolled to see, do any of them have any idea about these curses or have a feeling about this? I think that maybe what they say is, for years our bonded beasts here have used these islands as migratory routes. They're important to them, but they never go further in towards the Dominion. Something about the waters repels them. They do not like it. However, the last few days, I feel that they are ranging closer and closer. as if whatever force they did not like in the waters is retreating. On the other hand, your ship, for whatever reason, I can feel something about it recoils from this water. It yearns for the darkness more central to these islands. I wish you the best of luck. What does that mean? I don't know. So, that means we're going to head back towards the main islands. We know, real quick reminder, there are a few islands. There is one where the Cynosha Society and Explorers Guild are mostly set up, where I think we still haven't checked in with Drake McCabe recently, but we may get there soon. There's also Kairos, a very large island, which has 3 different settlements on it, one being Deepwater Harbor, where we broke out Damaris Evair, Crania, which sits atop these high cliffs, and is where Quan's home and shop is, and lastly, the capital of Carcordia, which is an enormous inland city built over these ruins. There's also the Razor Isle, which is a cursed island testament to the war and the cataclysm that caused the Sundering, so I think that is our end game probably, but we have a few more peripheral islands to have to go hit to break this sort of ruinous iron domain. I can't think of a great word for it, but basically this enormous area where Sky Iron becomes corrupt. However, I think that the Senator is going to insist we bring him back to Kairos, and we may split the party here for a bit. You know, split the party. In a solo TTRPG. You know how it goes. So anyway, I think that I'm just going to plan in this session. We're going to set up the next episode or 2, and I think that we will hit the action big time next time. Here's what I'm thinking. I think that this is going to be a collection of short scenes that just fill in details about the world based on things we've learned so far. I like to check in like this every once in a while and just remember little details about things that I've written down somewhere, and I went, oh yeah, I'd like to get to that. So, one thing I want to do is that as the Revenant is once again setting sail and heading into the heart of the Dominion, I think that at one point Cassidy feels her daggers move in their sheaths. I think that she feels her weapons they start pulling in a direction, almost like magnets. And while she's around other members of the crew, she does not immediately act on this. But I think that come nighttime, when things are a little more died down, she can see Lee. She pulls out one of her dirks and just holds it in her hand and feels a little tug. I think that she hears the voice of Nameera in her head and hears that, "Open your eyes." And when she thinks about that, she sees that spectral, ghostly kind of outline go and blaze upon her dagger. And not only that, it's pointing in a direction almost like a compass. And Cassidy looks around at night and sees the stars in the sky which she navigates by, and she sees the moons hanging there, giving off their light. But close to the horizon itself, too low in the sky to be a star this bright. In one direction, and then maybe in another, somewhere on the horizon on the other side of the ship, she sees 2 small lights. And she asks one of her crewmates, "Do you see that over there? Is there a lighthouse? Is there an island in that direction?" They're consulting charts. And after a few minutes, the crewmate looks at Cassidy and says, "No, ma'am, there's nothing over there. And I'm not sure I see anything." They hold the spyglass up to their eye again and look and say, "It's just dark. I'm sorry." And Cassidy is very confused and concerned. And I think that Lee smiles and laughs behind her and says, "Oh, you were awkward before, but this is painful. This is hard to watch." She says, "Lee, now's not the time. I'm doing this for you." And he laughs and says, "Oh, are you going to let them hear you talking to me now? Right here on the deck?" And Cassidy just you hear her clench her teeth so much they almost grind. And she looks back over the gunwale and she looks at that light on the horizon and says, "Lee, please tell me you see it." And Lee says, "I see it. Yes. It's one of the altars." Cassidy spends the night charting and thinking about what direction, roughly how far, where she's going to need to go to potentially find these other altars to free more souls and rid the Heart of the Dominion from this cursed Sky Iron domain. I think we drop off Senator Minos, except I think he's going to leave Quan with us. Damaris Iver also stays on board, but Senator Minos leaves and says, "There's business I must get back to. I've been gone too long. Hopefully they don't ask too many questions." He's walking away with a little bit of a limp. He definitely was injured on this expedition of his, and now he's going to have to explain a whole lot or keep a whole lot of secrets, which may not be new to him, but Cassidy is concerned about a loose end. Oh, and before he goes, Senator Minos looks at Quan and puts his hand to the Clockwork Soldier's chest and says, "Suspend bond." And when he does so, Quan's eyes change and turn, and the clockwork being begins to kind of change its posture, and it looks around and says, "Senator? Miss McCabe, how did I get aboard a ship?" And Cassidy just slaps the big metal body of Quan and says, "Oh, we have a lot to catch you up on. Come on." And the crew plus Quan spend the next couple of hours or maybe even day planning out courses. They let a bunch of other crew members of the Revenant probably leave the boat, go to the mainland, go visit whoever they want, stay there if they want. They don't need a full crew for this, but maybe they do. Regardless, we are charting courses. We are going to set a course. The expedition moves set a course when you travel a known route through perilous seas. So I think that we are doing this. This is not quite undertaken expedition levels of exploring. I think that Cassidy, between her many nautical charts and the magnetic compass-like new ability of her ghost touch daggers, is probably also helping. I think that we are going to set a course towards the nearest of these next altars and see what we can get done. Here goes. That is, oh no, a 3 plus supply, which right now is only a 3 for a 6 versus 2 7s on the challenge dice. It says here, on a miss, you are waylaid by a significant threat. Pay the price. If you overcome this obstacle, you may push on safely to your destination. Oh no, miss with a match? I'm just setting a course? Oh geez. Okay, here goes. Let's see. Rolling. Pay the price. 56 says, a friend, companion, or ally is in harm's way. Or you are, if alone. Well, we are not alone. I'm wondering if that should be one of our crewmates, or if that should be Senator Minos, who we just dropped off. Now, it says here, significant threat has waylaid us. Paying the price. If you overcome this obstacle, you can push to your destination. I'm going to roll straight up on the Cursed Offshore Observations table for what it is that may be the source of this threat. Let's see. 49, ship graveyard. Okay. I kind of like the idea of this working in tandem. I think that we get this parallel shot, right? Imagine this is a TV show where Senator Minos walks off of the Revenant towards the city of Carcordia. Obviously, it's a long ways inland, so we drop him off at one of the harbors, and he is escorted immediately as a high-ranking member of society, hops into some kind of, like, carriage or something like that, and they take him inland towards the capital. And at the same time, we see the Revenant take off on the open waves away from the islands towards this unknown location where this altar is standing that Cassidy must deal with. Both are heading into locations they know are going to be dangerous, given the new information they have both received from this most recent expedition of Nameera. As both approach, I think that we see Cassidy start to pull the sails so that way the Revenant slows down as it approaches this island that they are coming towards, because just scattered throughout the shallows around this island are masts and hulls and just tons of chaotic debris that could sink their ship, could just kind of ground their ship, get it stuck in a tangle of a ship graveyard. Similarly, Senator Minos walks into the Senate chamber where just a few episodes ago we heard of the coup or the Bloodsworn sort of attack that happened on the Senate. And when the senator comes in, it's a little different than when last he was here, and I think he gets a hand on his shoulder. The voice says, "Senator, I hear you've made a new friend that we are all very interested in hearing about." And you know what? Let's just really frame this as a parallel. Senator Minos is standing before a collection of senators, all of whom were the ones who walked out to allow the Bloodsworn in. And this is the cabal behind Will Solace. And for Cassidy, she must anchor the Revenant, and they are rowing a boat through. It is Cassidy, Quan, Asana, and Damaris Yver. And they are rowing through this ship graveyard, and suddenly, crawling up and standing before them on what is bound to be an awesome setting piece for a combat, is Marama leading a bunch of Bloodsworn, because she has tracked Cassidy here. And she says, "I told you you could never escape, and I knew exactly where you were going to go next. But I can't let you in. Now do me a favor. Give me a little more of that blood." And that is where we end this session. A little shorter, but I think that we've set up a good set piece for the next episode, and I think that we could do a little bit. I've got a game plan. I can see the map ahead of me for what comes next. All right, well, thank you. I hope that you are enjoying what I'm doing here. If you do, find me on the social medias where I'm mostly quiet, but you can always reach out and say hi. If you want, you can email me directly at reneplaysgamespod@gmail.com. Tell me about a game you're interested in, pitch a game that you made, talk on an episode of Perspective Checks, which, fair warning, I'm going to be doing 2 a month, but still got quite a backload. But I'd love to talk to people. You can always do me a favor and leave a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice, which goes a long way towards just helping get me in new people's feeds and things like that, suggested feeds, whatever. And if you are insanely generous, I do have a Ko-fi page that I have not updated in far too long, but if you go on there, you can leave me a one-time or recurring donations, and I do promise that I will make it up to you. And I think that's it. Go join the DMs After Dark Discord. We have good chats. You can talk to me a lot more frequently on there. We talk about different games and games that we've been playing, and we have a good little community growing over there. Go get Mech in the Trans Rights for Ohio itch bundle. For $5, you get my little solo carved by Rune game of mech versus kaiju fights, along with 466 other games. What an insane value, going to a great cause. Definitely go do that. Link will be in the description. And I do promise there are 2 new cities coming out for mech soon, so if you get it, you'll be able to play 3 different adventures with a bunch of different equipment and stuff like that for mech. So until next time, maybe go to the aquarium? Go pet a stingray. If you can do that. I don't know. I think you can.